This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com coming at you with my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. There's a lot of news this week. The biggest news was Jerry Lawler, WWE Hall of Famer. There's no denying he's one of the greatest wrestlers and most successful wrestlers of all time, also one of the best announcers of all time. He had a massive stroke, and a lot of people were expecting the worst, but he managed to make a pretty good recovery so far. Apparently, he was out to lunch with his friends and felt sick, and he was later found face first down in the parking lot of his condo in Fort Myers, Florida, and taken to the hospital. Apparently, he had emergency surgery, and the stroke initially left him with no movement on the right side, and he wasn't able to talk. And there was life-threatening fear at that point, and also fear that he might not regain control of his right side. But within a few hours, he was later able to talk, but with a bit of a speech impediment, and he was able to move his limbs again. He's 73, wrestled as recently as a couple weeks ago, and was scheduled to do appearances in Florida this weekend. He had a heart attack September 12th, 2012 in Montreal in the middle of a Raw broadcast. And just before that, he had wrestled on the same show. And he's been with WWE for a while now, but they hardly use him, even though he's better known and better than their current commentators. However, they like to go with younger people. He also had COVID really bad recently and a stroke in 2018. In the 70s, he was headlining the Mid-South Coliseum almost every Monday night, where they would get fans between 7,500 to 11,000 every single week, which is amazing. And that dropped off significantly by the 90s, when even with some WWE support of the cards, they were only getting 2,000 to 3,000, but it was probably the last American territory to really hold out. And of course, WWE initially used that as a development territory before the OVW days. They would send people to Memphis, like Jason Sensation and PCO were both sent there. But in those days, the pay was almost nothing if you were sent to Memphis. Apparently, Nick Khan expects WWE to sell within about 3 months, and it's expected to sell around $8 billion. Wall Street says it's worth between 7.6 to 12.3 billion. Tony Khan is interested in buying it, he said. However, there would be some obstacles, as his father would probably have to work with a purchasing partner to purchase the company. Dave Meltzer says that WWE has a market value now of $6.588 billion. And if the WWE were to sell for $8 billion, this is what the key people would make. And this is interesting. If it was sold for $8 billion, Vince McMahon would get $3,098,399,955. So he'd get the most. Stephanie McMahon would get $199,844,761. It's a lot. Triple H would get $7,729,057. So when Vince Russo says that Stephanie and Triple H could start their own company, with all the millions they already have, plus the millions they get in the sale. I think they definitely could. Linda McMahon would get $61,135,916. Kevin Dunn would get $29,991,694. Nick Khan would get $10,929,591. And Frank Reddick would get $10,931,948. So there will be big cash outs upon the sale. And if they did sell to a private company and all those shareholders get big payouts as well, I think most of these lawsuits would go away. WWE is doing SummerSlam at Ford Field in Detroit, where they had the 2007 WrestleMania this year. That was the Donald Trump WrestleMania where Vince McMahon had his head shaved, where they had Lashley and Umaga. It's hard to believe Lashley went from that to working in TNA only a few years later, because that's a pretty huge spot. And I remember, like, the TNA show in Ottawa here, the arena they did it in did not have good heating, and the crowds they had here, they did like 6 tapings in a row, but the crowds, some of the nights they actually had to pay people to be in the crowd. I think it was like $60. They sent out a casting notice, be on a TV show in a live audience, $60. But I'm just saying, like, he went from headlining one of the biggest WrestleManias that had 68,500 paid and 1,250,000 pay-per-view buys to, like, 10 years later working for TNA, and now he's back doing well again. So quite a journey for Lashley. NXT did a show outside of Florida, a special. It didn't get a good rating, but had a good live attendance of 5,100 paid from Charlotte, North Carolina. That was considered a very good success. Dwayne Johnson was nominated for a couple of Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards. Favorite movie, Black Adam. Favorite action star, Black Adam. Favorite animated movie, League of Super Pets. Favorite voice in an animated movie, League of Super Pets. And favorite family TV show, Young Rock. A lot of people like to claim that Black Adam was not a success. I mean, it may not have done as well as people projected it, but it was still the #1 movie for a while and is being nominated for awards. So I think that there's just rock haters out there, people that hate success. JBL is finished his on-screen character with Baron Corbin. AEW was in El Paso, Texas over this week, 4,000 paid. And Frank Stone, who I've wrestled as Blood Hunter, got, I think, a Rampage match. I saw that he posted a clip of him in the ring. He's tough. I hope something comes up for him. Rampage did a 0.11 rating. AEW, by the way, Dynamite did a 0.3 rating. NXT, same rating as Rampage, 0.11. Raw from Orlando did a 0.55 rating and 8,900 paid. Very good crowd. SmackDown from Greenville, South Carolina, 0.61 rating, 8,700 paid. Seems like post-pandemic, people are missing the WWE shows, and they're getting some good crowds. But of course, we're heading into WrestleMania week 2, and those are better than average for TV shows. And also, they're doing less house shows, and they're running less towns, so people have to travel to the shows. But obviously, the company's making a fortune. It's working for them. Impact didn't rate in the 18 to 49 again, which means they got less than a 0.01 rating. Same with New Japan. They didn't rate either. Women of Wrestling did a 0.05. Again, we don't hear much about them, but we hear a crazy amount about New Japan and Impact, even though way more people pay attention to Women of Wrestling. In other AEW news, Jay Briscoe's daughters, Jay Lee, the 9-year-old, was released from the hospital February 1st and will have to wear a back brace and a neck brace for about 3 more weeks. She'll also need to get another back surgery and physical therapy to recuperate. His other daughter, Grace, still has no use of her legs below the knees. She does have a feeling sensation but cannot move them. Apparently, her lower leg feels like it's tingling nonstop, but the tingling is starting to get less. That's terrible. At least she survived, but it's terrible that they have to go through that, or anyone has to go through that, particularly a child, plus the loss of the father. So if we think we have it bad, think about the poor mother in that situation. Paul White, who's 51 now, says he has had knee surgery and plans to return to the ring next month. I think they've been paying him for years at AEW, and he hasn't done much. One of the great things about AEW, they don't mind paying people and not having them work much. Charlie Thunderbolt Norris, who was briefly in WCW, passed away at 59, February 5th. He had tryouts with WWE when they were looking to have a quote-unquote Indian gimmick, but decided to go with Tatanka around the same time. Even though he was much bigger than Tatanka, and his Native American dance that I've seen is actually better than Tatanka's, but for whatever reason, they went with Tatanka. Apparently, for those WWE tryouts, he was known as Thunderblood and Johnny Greyfeather. Sorry, it's Charlie Thunderblood Norris. I don't have my glasses on. But apparently, after he beat Bobby Eaton a bunch of times, Chris Benoit, and Max Payne and other stars, he wasn't getting over enough to their liking. So they let him go, and then he sued WCW over them forcing him to do the Indian gimmick. And it's believed that he got a settlement. He said he was making about $800 a week with WCW. John Hennigan, who is a wrestler that I think is very talented, 43, is going to do a celebrity boxing match in Tampa, April 15th, where it's going to be called Creator Clash 2. And he's going to be facing Harley Morenstein from Epic Mealtime. And I did see this Harley Morenstein's first celebrity boxing match that he won on the first Creator Class. And I have to say, the guy that he beat was small, much smaller than him. He's 6'6" and 37, so he has the height and weight advantage over Morrison. But I noticed, just from doing some amateur boxing and kickboxing myself, that Harley did not have very good movement. So as far as from a movement standpoint, John Morrison is much better as far as agility. But he'll definitely not have the reach advantage. And Harley also looked really blown up in the other fight that he had, which I just watched. So I would say John Morrison will probably win that. And also, apparently, I heard him say in an interview Taya said that she's going to beat him up if he doesn't win. So there's some motivation. You don't want to embarrass your girlfriend. I'm sure CM Punk's girlfriend would be pretty humiliated at his performances. Imagine being the audience and seeing your boyfriend do that bad after all the hype. But on the bright side, he's a multimillionaire. Fedor had his retirement match last week. Didn't do a very good rating. And he was knocked out in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. They didn't release the attendance for the show, but the gate was 850,000. Apparently, Mark Hunt has a lawsuit against Brock Lesnar in the UFC where he's claiming assault because Lesnar was juicing, taking steroids, apparently, for this UFC 2000 fight. And he's suing both Lesnar and the UFC. And Hunt is saying that, and then apparently UFC's defense is apparently Hunt was saying Lesnar was using performance enhancement drugs even before they had the fight, and like doing promos on him about that and stuff. So he was aware that there was a chance that he would test positive for steroids because it's common for fighters to test positive for performance enhancing drugs in WWE, in UFC. WWE, you never hear anything about that anymore because I think they allowed TRT, and of course Lesnar was under contract with WWE at this time, which confirmed what was already suspected, that the part-timers aren't really tested. Sean O'Malley has signed a new 8-fight deal. Oh, and also Lesnar made $8 million for that fight, and Mark Hunt made $700,000. I'll just get into a couple of your questions here because I'm going off to the gym. Mike Piper's doing great. Alfred, the area where I live now, with the amount of snow there is, I can't run outside. My old place was a lot easier because even in the winter, like the paths were shoveled better. Here, you're out in the forest pretty much, so you can't really run. And to run, you got to run on the street, which with the icy road conditions and stuff is a good way to get hit by a car. As Tokyo Joe got hit by a car in New Japan Pro Wrestling on the side of the road and lost his leg. Lost both his legs, I think, or at least one of them. But yeah, no, it sucks because I really love running outside. Maybe I'll move to British Columbia one day if I can't get a work visa for the U.S., which is really hard to get for Canadians. I'll just move somewhere in Canada where I can run year round. Somebody says that the pay in Memphis was next to nothing. Well, I know Jerry Lawler made a lot and Jerry Jarrett made a lot, but they were known about being very frugal. Piper's doing well. Thanks for asking. Why does AEW get low ratings if it's better than WWE? Rampage gets the same rating as NXT. Dynamite usually does usually around a 0.3, and Raw usually only does about a 0.4, so it's not that far off from Raw. I don't think it's better wrestling than WWE. They're both very acrobatic companies, but I do remember when AEW started, they were going to go back to classic wrestling, and they ended up going more the other direction as far as lots of leg slapping and acrobatics and phony looking stuff, not paying attention to tags for tag matches. stuff like that. But they have done some good things, and so is WWE, but they haven't done enough to make me really want to watch it much. As I said, the Lanny Poffo against Hulk Hogan match that I watched this week, I found that more entertaining than anything I've seen from real wrestling lately, or from current wrestling lately. But then again, that was from my childhood. So, but I just thought the characters were so much better back then. There was more mystique. Mike agrees what I was saying the other day, that Mike, I actually said this the other day, even you may not have seen it, but the Bray Wyatt gimmick is stale. Because I brought up that apparently The Undertaker said in an interview, what he whispered in Bray Wyatt's ear is, "You can call me anytime." And they considered that like a passing the torch moment. But if you guys remember, The Undertaker was headlining shows. There was like, at one point there was 2 and 3 shows a night, but at least when The Undertaker started, there was usually 2 shows a night, 2 WWE live events a night. And you would have The Undertaker headlining one of them. And you'd have like Bret Hart headlining the other. And then there was also Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, Macho Man were around. But like The Undertaker was on the top of the card as a draw more than, you don't see like Bray Wyatt as the main headline of shows as much as you did The Undertaker. So, and as you said, like he peaked, I think, at that WrestleMania John Cena match where they did teleportation, and like it was all down. Like his popularity went down from there. I'm not saying he's still not one of their most popular, but they have very few top stars, and I don't think he's eclipsed The Undertaker. I love the LA Knight part where Uncle Howdy jumped on him and totally missed him, and they still acted like he touched him. That was the Shockmaster moment of 2023. The Royal Rumble outcomes were exactly as predicted. The only thing that we weren't sure about the Royal Rumble was, would The Rock or Steve Austin come back, or even John Cena appear, and neither of those 3 appeared. But I think everybody knew if it wasn't going to be The Rock against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania or Austin against Roman Reigns, the only one that would make logical sense is Cody Rhodes. Alfred. No. I mean, Sami Zayn has even said it. Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Sami Zayn doesn't work out really by the looks of him. His arms are tiny. Like you see him next to Roman Reigns. Like he doesn't look on the same level. And you have to attract like interest in WrestleMania. So I don't think Sammy would have been a good choice. No, I know the smart marks like him, but Cody Rhodes looks more like a credible opponent for WrestleMania. And as I said, Sammy even said it himself. He doesn't have the look of someone they would ever put as a long-term champion. So if he ever did have it, it would be a short run. And of course, they talk about like that because there's no more kayfabe. That's just the way it is. Yes, I missed Road Warrior Animal interviews too. Anyway, I don't want to be negative about this. I'm glad people still like it. But Mike doesn't like Cody. I do think he's overrated, but they at the same time, who else do they have? Sami Zayn with pipe cleaner arms. Kevin Owens, who loses all of his matches, other than for the short period of time when they were trying to build him as a credible opponent to Roman Reigns, and he looks like the Wendy's fry guy. Like, who else do they have other than like Logan Paul against Roman Reigns, but actually let him win? But when will I interview Big Cass? I've interviewed him. Search up Hannibal Big Cass. I was actually supposed to wrestle him in June of 2021. Do I still smoke weed? No, I don't. I guess I had one. I had several. I think I've had a total of 4 of these THC drinks in my life. And the last 2, I never really smoked it. I only smoked it when people would give me weed. And at one point in time, somebody was sending it to me as a sponsorship thing if I mentioned it, but it's not good for your lungs to smoke it. But also, as I said, I would more often rather drink it or take the gummies. But the last time I had one of those drinks, I had a really, really bad experience that brought me back to a traumatic moment in my childhood. And it was extremely upsetting, and it stayed with me for the next day as well. So that was enough to make me not want to smoke weed anymore, which I'm fine with. Because I'm 40 years old, and I need to treat my body well. And speaking of that, I got to get going to the gym. So if there's more news, I'll check in with you guys later. Have a great weekend.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot